Ladies and gentlemen, this is JudgeSpektre, and now I'm bringing you my thoughts on Fallout 3. Now, this game was made by Bethesda, the group behind the ever-popular Elder Scrolls series. I have to admit, when I first picked this game up and started playing it, I basically thought of it as the Elder Scrolls 4 with guns. It didn't really interest me, and I really felt bad about paying $60 for pretty much the same game. It wasn't until several months later that I actually purchased it again and gave it a second chance. And it was at that point that the greatness of this game actually began to shine through for me. Now, not knowing anything about the Fallout universe, I had to learn as I went along what it was all about, basically. Now, the storyline of this franchise is sort of like, it takes place in the future, but America sort of, in terms of culture and style, never really advanced beyond the 1950s. So while we've got great technology, you sort of see old style cars and stuff like that. This game is post-apocalyptic, taking place 200 years after a nuclear war with China, and the whole world has been devastated by the nuclear fallout and radiation is everywhere. Your character you create from the very beginning of the game starts out growing up in an underground vault. You're raised there by your father after your mother dies in childbirth, and he suddenly mysteriously leaves, and then you go out to find him. It's also worth noting that your father in this game is voiced by Liam Neeson, which was awesome. Now, after leaving the vault in search of your father, you're basically at that point allowed to pretty much go wherever you want and do whatever you want. The gameplay in Fallout 3 takes place mainly from a first-person perspective, although you can switch to third-person, but it's a bit clunky and it doesn't really work very well most of the time. It's an RPG, but it feels like a first-person shooter, and you can actually use a gameplay feature known as VATS, which is a targeting system which allows you to pause the game and basically zoom in on several different points of the enemy's body and single them out specifically. Your chances of actually landing this attack are based upon your proficiency in VATS as well as whatever weapon you currently are using. And while you're out there wandering the post-apocalyptic Washington, D.C. landscape, you will certainly have a lot to shoot at as you'll be dealing with mutated insect life forms, raiders, and super mutants. You certainly won't have any shortage of things to shoot, that's to be sure. And once you gain enough experience to level up, you'll be able to choose perks for your character. Now, these are basically things which give you boosts in different categories. What perks are available will depend on how you set your statistics up as well as what level you're currently at. They're a neat little feature and they add a little bit more fun to the game. And apart from basically just running around and killing things, you'll also be tasked with making morality choices in this game. You'll be doing things such as either choosing to disarm an undetonated atomic bomb, or accepting money and setting it off and nuking an entire town, killing everyone there. And that's just a sample of some of the stuff you'll be doing. Now, one of the areas of Fallout 3 that's talked about quite a lot is the actual ending of the game. And if you haven't beaten it or seen the ending, I would recommend you stop listening around this point because I'm going to be talking about it. Now, without going into an overwhelming amount of detail, at the end point of the original story, you're basically put in a position to where you commit self-sacrifice. You do have an option not to, but you get the sense the game was really kind of set up for your character to actually die in an act of heroic sacrifice. And once that's finished, the game ends. And a lot of people had a big problem with this. And for the life of me, I don't really understand why that is. I will admit that the way it's done is slightly anticlimactic, but I felt like it ended okay, and video games and RPGs in general all end at some point. I can't think of too many that didn't end after the main quest. I suppose a lot of people are stuck in the mentality of it's a sandbox game, so it has to keep going forever. Well, quite frankly, there aren't that many side quests in the game, and reaching level 20 isn't that difficult, and once you do that and finish the main quest, there's not a lot to do, so I don't really see why the game shouldn't have ended right there. But the majority won out, which brings me to my next topic, the downloadable content that was released for Fallout 3, Broken Steel. Now, this downloadable content pack extends the game beyond the original ending and adds 10 additional levels, raising the cap from 20 to 30. And it also adds several new perks, most of which are completely useless by the point you get them in the game. It also adds several new enemy types, which are hideously overpowered, and it takes quite a long time to defeat them. Even on the harder difficulties, it can be a pain. Now, the main problem I had with this downloadable content pack isn't really the features. It's more along the lines of, they said that this continued the story, but that's only in a very general way, because there's no real story being told. It's nothing more than just saying, go kill this thing, go grab this item, and go attack this base. There's no story. And you're never really given any choices in this downloadable content. You basically play one side all the way through with pretty much no options. At the very end of the downloadable content, there is a morality choice, but there's never any build-up to it, and you're never given an option to switch sides. It would basically just boil down to you doing your job like you're supposed to, or not, and being completely evil just for the sake of it. It felt totally thrown in just for the sake of saying that it was there. All in all, if the only thing you really wanted was to continue playing Fallout 3, then this definitely delivers, but it fails to deliver anything in the way of decent storytelling. Now, Broken Steel isn't the only downloadable content. There were 2 others before it, I think, and there have been several more since. And if you could only own one, I would highly recommend downloading Point Lookout, because I had the most fun with that. You don't get much in the way of new items, but in terms of the size of the new areas you're given and the wealth of quests available, it's definitely the most worthwhile of the ones available right now. All in all, Fallout 3 was an amazing game, one of my favorites to date. And the only real negative thing I had to say about it came from the add-ons, not the actual core game itself. If you can buy Fallout 3, I would definitely recommend it. I mean, by this point, most people probably have played it, but if you haven't, I would definitely recommend buying this game because it is a blast to play.